3 is the future.
Welcome, crew, to What Are Your Three, a Channel 3 podcast where we take a member of the Channel 3 community, discuss 3 games of their choosing, go through some honorable mentions, a few other odds and ends, have a nice little video game discussion. I'm Dan, and with me as always is Ray.
What's going on, everybody? So when we go through our guest list and getting one settled and set up, we're usually looking, who's been on the site, who's racked up a bunch of XP and stuff like that, who's been around. And then the other side of it is we see, did anyone just jump in and kind of just understand what we're trying to do right away? So, so we're always paying attention to see, does someone just show up and just start posting stuff? And it's like, yeah, look, he gets it. They showed up. This is exactly what it's supposed to be for. And it's working and it's great. And that's what we have tonight. Our guest is the one and only Welgo, who, jumped on the site. And it was just post right away. I think it was World of Warcraft. We saw a raid happening really early on. And we were like, we got to get this guy on the podcast. Welgo, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I was really looking forward to this as soon as you guys first messaged me.
Well, we're going to take that Warcraft segue and jump right into your first game then. First game you wanted to discuss when you sent us your 3 was, in fact, World of Warcraft. The stuff of legend. I don't know how else to put it than that. The game's celebrating its 20th year, I think, in November this year. It's got a 4.2 rating on the site. But when did this? First of all, I have to ask. It's been around for 20 years. When did this start for you?
Oh boy, how much time do we have? It was my first real game obsession. I played a few games handheld and stuff growing up, but it wasn't until I went over to a friend's house and he's like, "Oh, check out this game." And I became hooked. I think it would have been, I always have to look back at what year it was, but I know I started late Burning Crusade, which was their second expansion, was my first introduction to it. And I immediately got hooked. I was, right before that, addicted to RuneScape. So it was a real easy transition into why I would like World of Warcraft. Yeah. And I didn't have a PC strong enough to play it at the time. So I was always at my friend's house. We had like a gaming cafe in my town back like 2008-9, I think, where I got to play on his account. And then when that shut down, I was able to buy one of their PCs and I got my own account and everything. I think it was middle of Wrath of the Lich King. And from there, I got hooked. It was so fun. And especially after I slogged through 55 levels of a very squishy class and learned that I like plate-wearing tanks. And it's just been history after that. I've been addicted ever since.
Have you run with basically one character through the time? It seems like you like the orcs. I believe was your race selection on a Channel 3 quest one day, but an orc tank, that's your play style?
Oh, absolutely. My first character was an orc rogue, which I was made fun of a lot by my friends, thinking a big orc could sneak.
Counterintuitive. Hey, listen, I'm not trying to stereotype Warcraft races or anything, but okay, I can't blame your friends. It's fine.
The whole time, every time we played together and I was sneaking, I'd just be grunting, "Sneaky, sneaky orc." So it just to embrace it, But
there's a reason in Marvel they have Ant-Man do the stealth theft missions and not Hulk. That's
Yeah, but when Drax stays perfectly still, he becomes invisible. You can't even see him when he's still.
All right. Fair enough.
He's got a point. I
can't argue it.
But yeah, no, and after that, it was an Orc Death Knight. That was the one I was like, okay, I got to level 55. It was the level requirement to try it. And then I realized, wow, I can deal damage and survive when fighting more than one person. Cool. So I did that. And then they changed the spec I was playing to be from damage to tank, and I didn't like it. So I tried a warrior, and I have been maining an orc warrior for the last 12, 13 years. I am a prot warrior tank through and through. I love using my smashing board to deal damage and just take all the hits. It's wonderful. And the orcs are awesome.
Who's been with you longer, your wife or the orc?
Now that's
you're
a
thinking
toughie.
too long about this. I have concerns.
Well, no, here's the thing, because we started dating in high school around the same time I started playing WoW. So
probably just slightly outdates
meant
that
to be.
particular orc, yeah.
It's close. She can't hear me. She's up there, but
I didn't say
close.
which one's more important. Clearly, she's the more important
Oh,
one.
the wife, easily. Yeah. Come
yeah.
on now. You didn't ask that question.
I didn't ask that. Yeah, so it's just to be clear. Yeah, just to be clear.
Yeah,
Oh, boy.
importance? Absolutely, my wife. Come on. Sorry, that's for the video,
That's for the
podcast
video
viewers.
one day.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to make the orc, mouthing the orc into a GIF that's going to be relevant. That's you got to figure that out.
Great.
Oh
I don't
my
need
God.
that floating around the internet. There's plenty of me already.
Well, 9. So you've basically been in. There's been 9 expansions so far for Warcraft. And you've been here for. I mean, you weren't here from day one for the game, but you've been here for all the expansions at least. November of 2022. So it's been, a better part of a year and a half at this point. Was the Dragonflight expansion? How was that? So first of all, how was that expansion for you?
Well, I will say this is the first expansion I've played from start to finish. Most of the time, I would get in and then either due to funds or my guild dying, I would have to stop and then come back towards the end of it. So it was my first time actually going full expansion. And honestly, just on a gameplay level, the expansion is amazing. Gameplay level, the storyline, it's honestly one of the best expansions they've had in recent years. I fortunately skipped the Shadowlands one right before, which apparently people say is the worst expansion they ever came out with. So coming into this from my hiatus there, it was just amazing. The dragon flying is an amazing addition. I don't care if they're just copying another game. It's fantastic and it's wonderful. The crew I ran with, I got to a guild with an old friend of mine, and we raided the first 2 raids together. It was my first time actually pushing for heroic and clearing it, which was awesome. And then my newest guild I joined is just awesome people that pushing me even further to try for mythic dungeons and stuff like that. I have had more fun in the past year and a half in WoW than I would say probably the past 4 expansions I played. It's fantastic.
So have you been a steady player throughout? So, I mean, not having really dabbled in the Shadowlands expansion, which was the 2018 or 2020. I'm sorry, 20. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm alternating years. So that was like the 2020-ish. So have you been pretty much steady through the course of your time in the game then, or just kind of come and go? You kind of pick it up, play a couple months as a stretch, or how's it usually work for you?
It's honestly been, I'd say more frequently, it's been, I'll come in super excited, ready to go, and then the group I'm playing with dies out, and then I'm off for the next 6-7 months. This one, I got really excited. It looked really cool from the gameplay trailers and the cinematic trailers, which Blizzard always knocks out of the park. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And I'm actually surprised at myself I kept it going, but I was just having so much fun. The other ones, I remember Battle for Azeroth. I was excited for that expansion because the storyline looked cool and everything. Me and a couple friends were trying to set up a guild. We had a crew ready to go and get to it. We were all gearing up, ready to go for when the expansion dropped. It did. And then it was just me and my friends. Everybody else that signed on decided, nah, we're not doing it. So before the first raid tier was done, we all gave up on it. So, and that's kind of been my experience through all expansions.
So that one failed to launch. Why did that? What happened? Did everybody just checked out on that?
From my understanding, it was the storyline, as well as just how grindy it made it, because they introduced this thing called Covenants in Shadowlands where you could choose it. It was essentially like a sorting house thing, and you get certain abilities and storylines and cosmetics and stuff. But the storyline overall for the entire expansion kind of undermined previous narrative points in different expansions, right? So like the big baddie in Shadowlands apparently was pulling the strings for the world 5 expansions ago, according to the narrative of this one. And people really didn't like that. They diminished all different characters' actions that led to different things by saying, oh, they were just listening to this voice in the afterlife. And it made sense that people didn't like that, especially when they started talking about, the Lich King, Arthas. They kind of like, oh, he just wouldn't say because this guy. It's like, no, don't diminish how bad, crazy he was. So people didn't like that.
So was that at all? So I was kind of curious about the timing of this because they released basically Classic in 2019, right? So they kind of gave everybody a chance to go back and see what the game was like. So during that like off year in the development cycle, they did Classic and then they did Shadowlands right after that. So I was just trying to figure out, like, did they spread the dev team too much, or was it just they went down the wrong path? Is that what I'm just trying to figure out what happened there?
I think it was probably just a matter of went down the wrong path. Most recently, they announced they brought back Chris Metzen, who was a huge hand in the original World of Warcraft storyline. They brought him back to start working on the narrative again. I don't remember if he said he had a hand in Dragonflight or if he was just working on the expansions moving forward. But I mean, he does the voice of Thrall. He's been there ever since Green Jesus was. So, I mean, the narrative, I think they just went in the wrong direction. They were hoping for a big payoff of like, oh, here's the whole thing, and it didn't work out. Especially when the end of the raid and you beat the big baddie, he went with the stereotypical, oh, I was just trying to fix the world before the next big bad thing comes. It kind of just didn't pay off as well as I think they hoped it would.
So I'm going to ask, because this has had some pretty epic soundtracks where you mentioned their cinematics are always out there and always strong, but they've embraced, you've got your Nintendos of the world that have their music on lockdown. They won't release soundtracks even for the sake of protecting it. Then you've got Warcraft that they're releasing the sheet music for it. They're putting out the soundtracks. They're doing everything. Where do the soundtracks rank for you?
I was listening to some of them. This summer I was this is going to be a weird departure for the conversation, but my brother had like a little pop-up shop for his bakery and I was in there helping him out and I needed to put on some music. I put on literally just a This Is World of Warcraft playlist to have that music playing. And the soundtracks from, what was it, Mist of Pandaria and The Lich King are top notch. And anytime those came on, I was in the zone. I was transported to a decade ago. Oh my God, they're fantastic. And you mentioned the cinematics. The one for Shadowlands blew my mind. I mean, they had Sylvanas about to look like she was going to put on the Lich King helmet, the Helmet of Damnation or Domination, I think it was. And then she broke it. It was an amazing cinematic, and it just after that it sucked.
Listen, it could be worse. You could have been playing like the Doom soundtrack in your brother's bakery. It would have been a much different vibe.
No.
So
it was either the World of Warcraft playlist or I had sea shanties on from Assassin's Creed 3. So I have good taste in game music.
I wasn't sure if Ray was Ray, you were going for the unmute touch, but there you go.
Oh, it's just the sea shanties from Assassin's Creed 3. Which is fun, like from Assassin's Creed 3, but it's sea shanties have been around forever. But the game just like really.
Well, I had to listen to the Assassin's Creed 3 one.
Of course,
that's where I've learned.
It's fun. It's amazing how a game popularized it so well. It just added it to like mainstream culture, and everybody was like, "Oh wow, there was this whole style of music and like video game kind of reintroduced it to the world, kind of thing," which is so cool.
Absolutely. And if there's one thing Ubisoft did really well with those Assassin's Creed games is showcasing the culture, the architecture, and the maps. I think I saw a TikTok recently of a teacher showing in Assassin's Creed Odyssey where like the Battle of Thermopylae was. He was like flying an eagle up and showing his students. And it's like, because they did such a good job importing all those maps and like the structures and landmarks. So, and it makes sense to give the kids a visual aid for that.
Yeah, 100%. They did the research. I mean, it's like the level of detail they put into that. Even the games that if like the ones that weren't received as well, like the detail was still there. You could
Oh,
you
yeah.
could look and appreciate the visuals of it.
There's so many times like I've seen like watching Amazing Race and they go to Italy and I was like, oh, I've seen that in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
All right, so I was going to ask, looks like you had your kiddo dabbling on there recently. Is there much to that, or is it just, hey, let me try this? What's that been?
Oh my goodness. So he'll come down and he'll catch me in the middle of a gaming session, and he happened to I think it was Civilization. It was one of my one more turn moments, and an hour and a half later, I'm still in Civ. And he'll occasionally come on and see the games I'm playing, or it might have been WoW even. I forget which one I might have even posted, but there's been so many moments. But WoW, what he'll end up doing is I'll be running like a mythic dungeon, and he'll come down and like, I want to help. So I'll just have him press the space bar. So I'm charging in, I'm smashing boarding these mobs and stuff, and my character's just jumping around like crazy. And it's like, no harm, no foul. And one time he came down, I was trying out like a caster just for fun. I hate ranged characters. So I was like, I'll try it. So I'm playing a mage and I'm casting a fireball or something. And he's going, I want to hit the space bar. I'm like, oh, this one you can't, buddy. I need to sit still for 10 seconds because this class is dumb.
My last question I have to ask. So I think it predated your time in the game, but you can't go through World of Warcraft without asking about if the South Park episode came into play for you or not.
Absolutely it did. Are you kidding me? I don't think I saw it until after I got into it. And after I started watching it, like the episode after I played a bit, I was like, oh, absolutely. I understand what they're talking about. Yeah, it's a thing.
I get it now.
I get it now. Exactly. And I think actually, if I'm not mistaken, one of the NPCs in the Death Knight starting zone, after his weapon, like through the storyline, gets taken away, on his back are actually two versions of the Sword of a Thousand Truths, like skin model. So after I saw that, I was like, oh, I know what those are.
Doing the DiCaprio pointing meme at that point. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's move on to your second game, MAG. Just MAG. Originally, they were going to call it MAG, Massive Action Game, and thought that was too elaborate to go with for a name. A PlayStation 3 exclusive. I had to add this one to the library tonight. We did not have it in there. That has been fixed.
In my life.
We're gonna get to that, Ray, because the fun part was also trying to make sure we didn't already have it in there, and searching for MAG had to make some tweaks to our search algorithms to make sure this would work effectively. But anyway, so I say all this to say this was an online only game. Doesn't exist any longer. It's been closed for 10 years here. So a game that's been shut down for 10 years, how does that one make your 3 here?
It makes my 3 because it was such an amazing and impressive concept for a game. One of the things that they boasted for this was the fact that you could play a game with 256 players in it.
Guinness World Record accordingly at the time.
Oh, I remember that. Didn't know the name of the game, but I remember that record. I remember hearing about that.
The scale of the game and the maps when you go into that is so enormous. I remember the first time I hopped into one of those matches, I was like, okay, we're pushing forward, but this doesn't seem like a lot of people. And I opened the map and I saw where my squad was pushing in. And I zoomed out and saw that there were 3 other corners coming to the central location. And they're all pushing forward. I'm like, oh, that's where everybody is. This is huge. And just the concept of that, the fact that it was almost an RPG style where when you logged in, you had to choose one of 3 factions between like the American forces, the high-tech EU, and the ragtag Russian groups. You were locked into that faction. There was a talent tree. There was different armors that affected your speed and endurance and damage resistance, weapon types, everything. And you only defended on your team's maps, and you always assaulted on the other 2 teams' maps. The whole entire concept of the game was incredible. And depending on where you loaded into one of those big maps, you could have a rank that unlocked like artillery support or giving orders to the entire map or anything. It was such a cool and fun game. And even included things like when you push up, oh, our objective first is to take out the AA guns. Cool. Take those out. Now you can paradrop into where that was. But if the enemy team pushes you back and repairs it, well, now you got to spawn all the way back there. It was such an amazing game that kind of destroyed itself towards the end, but it was so much fun. And that's why it's my number 2.
What destroyed it about it? So what happened there?
There were a couple updates where they had to tweak the talent tree, and instead of tweaking like individual talents, they pretty much reset the entire tree multiple times. So that confused a lot of the player base. And then the biggest and most egregious mistake, I think, on their part was they did away with the uniqueness of the factions. So eventually it turned into almost like Call of Duty style, where it didn't matter that you were faction A, you were defending on faction B's map while faction C attacked you, instead of being on your own map and having home field advantage. And that just ruined the immersion, that ruined the feel and uniqueness of choosing a faction and progressing through, unlocking their armor and weapons. And it just destroyed the fun.
How did you wander into this one? So again, you're in World of Warcraft territory. You're in there. You're on the PC. Was this what brought you over to the PlayStation? Where does this spawn in the PlayStation narrative for you?
So I'll say, before I was a PC gamer, I was a PlayStation gamer. Original PlayStation was my first console. I was a PS2 kid, and then eventually I got into the PS3. Playing a couple games, I remember my buddy actually showing me the demo for it when it came out on the PlayStation Store. Gave it a shot, thought it was fantastic and fun. And it turned into me and him always trying to get on who could be a commander for whatever match we were getting into. It prioritized people with headsets. So that's when I first got my first headset for PlayStation to use, because I wanted to give orders. And it was just so much fun. I mean, like I said, it started on PlayStation. So if I wasn't on WoW, I was on there. And it was just one of those I was always looking forward to come home and play.
Had you played any of the SOCOM games at all? Because this is one where, Zipper Interactive, they made the SOCOM game. So I was curious how much of a tie-in there was, or how close this was together for it. And even in some markets, they marketed it basically as a SOCOM game.
I've dabbled in a few SOCOM. I think the most SOCOM experience I have is on the PlayStation Portable. But I would not say there was too much of a crossover. If there was, it was really only in narrative. It wasn't really in gameplay or anything, because it really was. It played almost like a Battlefield more than anything.
Just a monstrous 256 player version.
I still can recall a map I loved defending on I was the high-tech Europeans, because I loved how the high-tech weaponry looked. It looked sleek and clean. And I'm a sniper, so I knew where my favorite spots were. I was racking up the shots. They weren't pushing the objectives. I was knocking them down. And I miss that game so much. And I will defend it on this. I will die on this hill that game deserves more recognition.
Were you active still? We just passed the 10th anniversary of the shutdown. It shut down in January of 2014. Were you still active as they were closing it down, or what was that like, if that was the case?
I was not. It was as soon as they made the change to allow you to play any faction on any map, regardless if they belong there or not, I stopped it. I don't remember when that happened. But I definitely was not there that close to the end of it. But 10 years the servers went down. Yeah, it was. I didn't feel old. I didn't feel old at all tonight until you said that. So thank you very much.
Listen, Mr. That. PlayStation was my first console. I really don't want to hear it from you right now.
Fair. Absolutely. Speaking privilege,
you're going to be muted now, but except we're talking to you. So,
what a great rest of the podcast that'll be.
Just go to Jak and Daxter. You're up.
All right. The game 3 is 3 games. Jak and Daxter Trilogy. I'll go ahead and start and say that this might be it may be one of the most underrated trilogies in like history of games, because we start Jack and like we'll get into it, but Jak and Daxter, like number one, almost, I mean, I felt like playing it was like a love letter to like PlayStation saying, we want to do this thing where we're going to make unique characters. They're going to have kind of this funny combat style because we have Crash Bandicoot, so we're going to take that inspiration. Spyro was our 3D world. We're going to collect stuff and kind of adventure. And now we're going to make a game, and we're going to put all these concepts together on the PS2 on our new powerful system. And now we have Jak and Daxter. So there's my introduction to Jak and Daxter Trilogy. Welgo, where do you want to start with this?
I mean, how can I even follow up with that? That's the perfect way to describe it, as a love letter to games past and PlayStation's history. But I mean, I fell in love with that game immediately. Just the humor that it came without the gate of Daxter transforming into the little orange man that we know him as was just amazing. And the silent protagonist that Jak is the entire time through that first game is incredible. And it was that amazing platformer collectible combination that just really was I don't want to say perfection, but it really was close to it. It was so fun. It's so replayable even in 2024. And gosh, I can't say enough about how much I love not only the trilogy, but that first one. It was great. And then, sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I was just thinking with that first one. The game is only 3 bosses, like three kind of three things, but they have like a bunch of kind of biomes, or at least because they have different versions of Echo, it makes it feel like you are doing a lot of things.
Oh yeah,
in between each of these like 3 bosses, and that's it. You can kind of fly through it if you really want to.
Well, that's where the Spyro, I think, inspiration comes from. Because Spyro, I mean, yeah, you had all those portals to the different levels, and they didn't have many loading screens between the levels, but that's how Jak ran. I mean, the first one, it was, yeah, you'd face the first boss after collecting X amount of things through 4 or 5 different mission areas that you could freely move to, which was incredible. It was a nice balance of giving the illusion of open world while being on a linear path. And collect, however many power cells you need. You go fight the boss, and then you're doing a mission, but you're traveling to the next mission hub area. And like you said, you don't realize how little progression you're making with how much you're doing. And it just was the greatest time sink and joy doing it. And oh my gosh, it's so good.
and then and this first game it's very happy-go-lucky. The comedy is there. Obviously, Daxter is just hilarious the whole time. And then we transition to the second one, and there's still gonna be comedy, but they make a real transition to this, like, hey, we're gonna make it where it's gonna be a darker game. We're gonna, where everyone's a little bit older now. We're gonna introduce weapons in it. And obviously you have Dark Echo Jak now. So let's talk about number 2 now, and kind of that switch up.
So from Spyro to Grand Theft Auto is how I always look at it, and it's the greatest comparison ever. Because yeah, you said it's that happy-go-lucky platformer, the family-friendly thing. To Jak's first words in the series is, "I'm gonna kill this guy." It's super dark really fast, and like it started too in the opening cinematic. It's like, oh yeah, it's the happy-go-lucky adventure in the prehistoric like village and stuff, and then it cuts to him getting hit with the butt of a gun within 2.5 minutes. And the whole storyline too of just meeting these incredible characters, and these fleshed out characters from a crime lord to a resistance leader to even a captain of the evil guard. It's just so amazing. And then you can't forget Clancy Brown's voice acting as the main villain of the story is just top notch. And oh my gosh, I will never forget how many times levels, especially in the sewers of that game, scared the crud out of me with metalheads. And it was a fun, terrifying, amazing experience. And I still to this day love how the vehicles worked in there, between the thicker SUVs essentially that were slow moving to the single seat speeder bikes that you're flying through Haven City. It was, oh my gosh. That transition was the greatest flip the script ever, and they pulled it off beautifully.
And when you say script, they gave a real reason as to why the game is darker, because they're like, hey, by the way, we arrest them essentially, and we tortured your main character for 2 years. Right, it's like we straight up said, "Hey, that really fun game? We're gonna do some pretty inhumane things to him, and that's why your second game is going to be what it is."
We've pumped him full of this stuff for 2 years, and he should be dead, I think is what the characters say. But he's still alive somehow. This guy should have died a year ago, and the game should be over, but he's still here. I don't know what's going on. And then to have the twist ending at the end, I remember beating that game and needing to immediately play it again, just because the ending was just so incredibly well done, and it caught me off guard. It was just mind blowing.
Yeah, this kind of weird hidden time travel situation that you had no idea it was supposed to be this time travel, and the connection to the stone that you finished the first game with. Or that they don't tell you to say, but they're like, hey, by the way, this thing is going to be important when the next game comes up.
Absolutely. Back when games cared about the storyline between games, let's be honest.
Really connected it in a way that makes sense. And then we get Jak 3, right? Where it's like, now this is like, listen, Jak he's older, he understands all his powers. He's just going to go and kick everyone's butt now, right?
And to have essentially 3 major areas in the storyline to expand on the world, with the Wasteland, Haven City, and then I think there was even or maybe it was just Haven City, and I'm thinking of the 3 separate zones for Haven City now, between
that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, with the Metalhead area, the KG robot area, the Crimson Guard robot area, and the actual human center is just so incredible. And like the opening cinematic to show like, oh, the city was fine, and then you killed this guy, and now it's all against each other. They're blaming you. It's like, what? I saved those ungrateful people. What the? You really got attached to Jak's story, and especially when he started getting so angsty of like, why would I be the hero? They didn't like me when they wanted me to be the hero. And the whole story, like showing the dark precursors and the introduction of light eco and the powers that or rather the expansion on light eco from the first game, to showcase everything you can do there. And the driving mechanic that led to one of the greatest racing games, Jak X. It just, oh my God. It was the perfect way to end the trilogy, which makes me so upset because they won't make another console Jak game, I think, after that one. They've made a few portables, which were great, but they probably won't ever make another console one, which makes me sad.
And and again, this is what we say when the games really cared about the storylines. I mean, even the ending of this is such a like something you'd see in a storybook, where they're like, "Hey, by the way, we're we're really corrupt, and we've kind of made up this whole like higher entity thing, and we it was really a myth, and we just kind of made it up, and it's not really there, but we figured we could take control if we just told people it was here." Like that's a real like storyline plot twist you would read in a book. You wouldn't expect it like a game to like put that kind of thought into it.
People talk about games like The Last of Us being a great narrative driven game, and I believe that Jak and Daxter walked so that Last of Us could run. That's my opinion on it. When it comes to narratives and story and games, that game flushed it out so nicely, start to finish, exceeded expectations with changing of gameplay mechanics and how they wove that into the story. It was one of it's truly a masterpiece trilogy, and I'm happy they had the port to the older or the newer consoles, but If ever a game needed a remaster or a reboot, that would be it. I was very hopeful when Ratchet and Clank got it. I was like, okay, where's my boys? Where's Jak and Daxter? They always hinted at each other's games in each of the games. Like Jak 2 had a poster of Ratchet and Clank going commando. And then I think in Ratchet and Clank 3, there was a picture of Jak and Daxter in it. They always had that back and forth with each other. But like, Ratchet and Clank got a reboot. Where's Jak and Daxter? Come on, give it. Please. Welgo wants it. Where is it?
Ray, I just need to figure out the headline for our TED Talk equivalent, where Welgo's going to give a 60-minute TED Talk on how Jak and Daxter led to Last of Us. I can't wait for whatever we're going to call that series.
You're going to handicap me to only 60 minutes? Please, give me 4
have
hours.
At it.
So we'll finish with this. So which is your favorite of the three? Can you pick one?
How dare you ask me this question?
I'll tell you, I like
the reason I put
Jak for me. I'm going to tell you that because I liked it. It was a little darker. I was like, oh, okay, I get dark Jak. So like I'm generally a number 2 person because I feel like a lot of games really flesh out what they want to be in that second one. So that's where I am on it.
I'll say this. The reason why I put Jak Trilogy in my answer to you for my game was because this was a difficult question. But I think I have to agree with you that Jak 2 is probably the best because we don't get Jak 3 if Jak 2 flops, right? With the Grand Theft Auto style, the vehicles, the weaponry. Jak 3 never exists if Jak 2 is a complete wash. Now, obviously, Jak 2 can't come if Jak and Daxter fails, but it was such a risk to make that departure, and they landed it beautifully, 10 out of 10, that Jak 2 would be the front runner for the whole entire trilogy.
Playable Characters Podcast, funny interviews with real video game characters.
Hi, I'm Calvin Cato.
And I'm Brian McGinnis, and we interview video game characters on our show. We have comedians and actors come on and pretend they're a video game character for 30 minutes. We talk to them. It's all ad-libbed and improvised and always very funny.
Past guests include Bowser, Ms. Pac-Man, Q*bert, Princess Peach, and Princess Daisy.
You put them in a booth, and something short-circuited, and I decided that someone was taking too long in the money booth. And I hit her with a baseball bat. And thus was born Super Smash TV.
Just like that.
I was being raised by a family of toadstools.
How is that? That seems like it might be kind of fun.
It was really fun.
Mario should stick to plumbing, okay? Okay, he's from what I hear, a good plumber, a terrible hero.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really bad. And, I mean, let's not get started on his, whatever he is, friend, brother, special friend, I don't know, Luigi, whatever they're doing. Well, that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. They're saying they're brothers because, in the Italian-American community, these people tend to not look kindly on certain relations.
If you want to know what's going on in your favorite video game character's life, check us out. Playable Characters Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yes, comes out every Monday.
Now we've gone through your 3. We're going to move into some honorable mentions. We're going to talk about a few games here that didn't quite make the cut. We're going to start off with Civilization. Just for the sake of clarity, is this referring to the OG, the original, the Sid Meier Civilization 1? Or is this... Or are you trying to sneak in multiple games on this again? Wait, what's happening here? Look, what's going on, Welgo?
He's on to me. Honestly, I have only personally played Civ 3, 4, and 5. No, sorry, 3, 5, and 6, rather. I just had to look at my Steam to make sure which one. I always play Civ 5. So honestly, it should have been Civ 5. I'll clarify that for you.
So why 5?
I just like the gameplay more. I've tried 6, and it just seems a little too cartoony for me, as well as 2, I don't like the progression in terms of discovering new technologies, how units upgrade. Civ 5, to me, I really like the game flow of that. I like how, tile improvements add to your city structure without, consuming workers. There was a constantly moving micro and macro management of the game. It reminded me a lot of what I enjoyed about Civ 3, which was my first entry to it. And it's a lot more fun. I still play that game to this day where I don't think I've finished a game in a long time. I'll open a game, get through an hour and a half worth of moves, close it out without saving, and then I'll start a new one up 2 hours later.
I'm trying to figure out how to unpack that part. I wasn't expecting. So it's just like the opening, the creation part that really hooks you?
No, I'd say the whole thing hooks me. It's just a matter of how much time I have to put into it. I've gone as far as 3 turns from finishing the game and I just quit without saving. And then I've gone somewhere I don't even leave the Stone Age. It just depends how much time I have and what the ADHD focuses on.
Welgo happier in Stone Age. Welgo more peaceful, unburdened, living in Stone Age.
Welgo rock smash, zug zug.
Ray, were you gonna add something about rock smashing in there?
No, and I think if I added more, then we'd be out of the caveman era. I think you probably used up all the word count on that. I don't want to develop the civilization any farther.
We discover writing if he keeps talking.
So Welgo, I have to ask kind of a larger scale question here, because Sid Meier comes into computer gaming in 82, and by 86 they're slapping his name and picture on stuff. There have been 6 Civilization games, to your point, and all with varying degrees of, I'm trying to figure out how he's managed to squeeze 6 games out of it, besides, making some user interface changes and some successful, some less successful changes in the style of gameplay, but always the same idea. But how have they done this with Civilization? How do they keep running it back? Because Civilization 7 will come to us eventually. I think rumors continue to float out there about that one, but you've mentioned 3, 4, 5 being on your consistent play rotation here, or at least getting some shine, getting some time from you. What is it about this? What is it about this series? What is it about Sid Meier? And did you know there's a walk of games? Like I learned today, because Sid Meier is one of those guys who I've always, he's there. He's got Pirates. He's got Civilization. He's got 27 other series through the height of gaming. And apparently, I learned today there's a walk of games that he's got a star on. I guess gaming's got their own walk of fame, but he's he's on it. But what is it about the series? What is it about the series and like taking a fresh look at it, slapping a fresh coat of paint on it, making some tweaks to how it's adjusted, Gandhi going nuclear at various points? Like what is it about this series?
Greatest glitch in gaming history, in my opinion.
It is so much so they've just continued to add it. Like, well, we got to unglitch it now. It's just part of the game. Gandhi's going nuclear every time. That's all it's going to be.
Absolutely. Honestly, I mean, I would say it's no different than Call of Duty claiming they've made a new game every year.
Would you like my hour TED talk on that?
No, because I'm sure we agree on 99% of what you're going to say.
That was my jump to shark answer for the quest. Where Call of Duty was like, you know what? We've made a new game, but we've added another red laser attachment that you can put on. Brand new game.
My favorite thing, and not to go too far from Civilization and look at Call of Duty, is just how every year a new game comes out, and every year the Call of Duty franchise, as of late, hates it, but still plays it to the point of their knuckles are. That's
an entirely separate psychological study that has to be done on a series that is the number 1 selling game 14 of the past 15 years.
That's a case of super Stockholm syndrome, if I've ever seen it.
There's something there. 50 years from now, somebody's going to be doing like a longitudinal study on this stuff.
But to the question, I mean, I think it's just a matter of trying new things. I mean, I think even I saw something. I never tried it personally, but I remember seeing an update they did where they kind of came up with a battle royale version of Civ 6. Where like there was like it's like Volcano or something where lava eventually just starts encircling the map. And you have to be the last civilization standing in it. I mean, it's still turn-based. It's not, real time or anything. But I mean, you try new things. I think the whole turn-based community, if there even is one, I'm sure there is. That's why they keep making these games. But I think it's just, people come back for the games they like. And as long as there's that interest to it, they're going to keep churning them out. It could be the same exact game. I mean, how many years are we going to get a Skyrim remake and the same people are going to buy it and play it on all these different platforms?
You're attacking a lot of people on the site right now. I'd just be real careful.
I'm not attacking people. I'm saying it's no different. Us gamers like the games we play.
At least they put a different number on the Civilization games as opposed to Skyrim.
Exactly. And no disrespect to Call of Duty or Skyrim fans. I'm just saying we are gamers. We like what we play. And we will always buy the next thing that's in the same exact category. It doesn't matter if it's the same game with a remaster or 3 tweaks and they call it a new game like a college textbook. We'll play what we play.
All right, my last question. Have you conquered the space race?
I think I got close once, and then that was one of the ones I quit and didn't save. Normally, my go-to win is either cultural or diplomatic. I like making people have my art, and I like just forcing city-states to vote me world leader when everybody else doesn't stand a chance.
Ray, were you about to throw something in there? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say when it comes, when you're doing the same game, it's not like I haven't bought the same Nintendo game, 3 or 4 times. I also, I learned today that Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a remake. I thought this was an original idea, and stupid me thinking that there's been an original Nintendo idea since 1996. That's just dumb on me and not doing my research on it. I'm still gonna buy it, but it'll be new to me. I didn't play it before, so it's new to me.
How many people were so excited for the Super Mario RPG remake? That's the real thing. It's people like what they like.
People are pumped about that one. They made some changes to it. And there's gonna be a whole new generation that's never played it, and it'll be a brand new game. It would be new to me. I never played RPG, but it's not like one I'm interested in. But
same here. I'm aware of it, never played it, and I'm happy for the people that got it.
Yeah, people played the crap out of it too. All right, next honorable mention. We mentioned it, and now we're going to talk about it. Ratchet and Clank, which may go down as the greatest failure of Dan and myself on Channel 3. It's 2 years in, and somehow Ratchet and Clank is not in our library, and I don't know how we pulled it off. The remake, the new one is, and somehow the PlayStation 2 Ratchet and Clank, unless I've done the worst search of all time, Dan, is not in our library. Ratchet and Clank on PlayStation 2.
You're breaking my heart with that one.
I don't know how
that'll be fixed momentarily if accurate.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I don't know how this happened, because I went to say, let me go, check the game out. That's obviously that one's in.
We got five others in the 2016 Ratchet and Clank, but not the original summit. A little oversight because of the duplicate names. Yeah, fixing that right now.
I was like, obviously this one's in the library. It must be one of the first games we've ever done. Nope, we didn't. But anyway, Ratchet and Clank, a year after Jak and Daxter. PS2 was like, hey, we're gonna throw all these. We're gonna make these are our characters. We're making our own characters, and we're gonna make this style of game. Ratchet and Clank, tell me about it.
Oh my God, what can I tell you about it? I will preface this. This one I tried to do a sneak on you that this was a whole series of ones combined into one name. So I apologize.
You're testing me, new guy. You're testing me.
Listen, I followed the instructions that were provided to me. But I'll talk about the first one. That one, just the simplicity of it in terms of the weaponry, you get it. It's there. It's fantastic. The storyline was fantastic. Characters and the humor that they employed into it was great. It was one of those that my parents were really happy that I played when I was younger, because, and it's so funny I say this, because they liked that the weaponry in there wasn't serious. Like, you have a tiny robot that follows you around. Eventually you got like a turret deployer, or the greatest weapon of all time. I think it was the vacuum cannon to suck in an enemy and then shoot him out at another. It wasn't true violence like they heard other people playing, Grand Theft Auto or anything like that. Little did they know Jak 2 was coming around. Mm-hmm. But it just was a really fun game. And I was really surprised at myself putting that as an honorable mention on my 3, because the first Ratchet and Clank was the first game I ever truly beat. Like, all these other games, I would get stuck on the last boss and I wouldn't be able to do it. Ratchet and Clank, I ended up getting to the last boss, trying it hundreds of times, would get close but never beat him. I put the game down for like a year and a half. I actually played the second game, got to the final boss and couldn't beat him. And I said, forget this. This is awful. I'm mad. I'm frustrated. Booted up the original Ratchet and Clank and I beat the final boss first try. And I was like, oh, I guess I finished it. So that game is just, I mean, even to this day, you know, Captain Quark, Ratchet, Clank, even looking back at Chairman Drek, like all these characters just still are just so memorable. And we come back to the topic of back when they cared to flush out the narrative of a game, make these characters so iconic to where they are. Eventually, you know, Dr. Nefarious was an incredible addition, and his butler Lawrence, who I still remember because I played bass guitar growing up. So the fact I see Lawrence start shredding on a bass guitar, I was like, yeah, let's do it. But it just well fleshed out platformer with weaponry, good narrative. It's just fantastic game.
It was a Game of the Year nominee as well.
It was?
It was. I when I saw that, I was surprised because I don't think Jak and Daxter was, and like that, Jak and Daxter is a little more memorable for me. But Ratchet and Clank was a nominee for Game of the Year, so
that makes sense.
People appreciated it,
and they should. They rightfully should. I was so happy to see it was getting originally, you know, a continuation of the story when it came to I think PS4. There was a couple games that kind of flopped a bit, like Crack Through Time, I think it was, or something like that. I might be thinking of Sly Cooper, but which also almost made the honorable mention. I'll throw that in there. Really test my limits, but you know, and then to see the original was getting a reboot was just fantastic. They even got a movie out of it, which is incredible. I mean, the movie itself was just the first game as it was, but it's so good, and it's a classic and really set the tone for PlayStation into PlayStation 2, 3, and beyond.
Yeah, they did a lot of these like duo things where your backup character was kind of just chatting with you, was not using the main, you know, used the main character, and backup was kind of with you. You know, Clank just kind of riding on your back and eventually become a little jetpack and all that kind of stuff.
Great.
I have to bring up one thing. It's funny because I see this critique come up, not for this game, but it's, you know, everyone always likes to talk about the camera problems with the Nintendo 64, especially Dan. Dan loves to talk about the camera problems with the Nintendo 64. I'm telling you, there was a thing where video games didn't know, the developers just didn't know how to work cameras right. And one of the only complaints of Ratchet and Clank is that the camera turns weird. And I'm like, I think that was one for whatever, like they have to find something to say is weird. So they're like, we thought the camera angles were kind of odd with the third person and the way it's set up. And I'm like, that game did it. Obviously, Mario 64, the one I defend forever, their camera is awful. I even think about the original Kingdom Hearts. Once you play the other ones and you go back to the first one, you're like, oh, this camera never moves the way I actually want it to move. Like, wow, what an amazing like development they went from the first to the second game, because this camera looks everywhere except at the enemy I'm trying to hit right now. I just found it funny when I saw that critique of it. Like, for some reason, somewhere in 2001, 2002, nobody knew how to spin a camera, and they had to like all figure it out the next game apparently.
If I recall, I think the camera for that was even inverted without an option to change it too.
So they were trying all kinds of things. Nobody knew how to do a camera apparently.
It's so funny you mentioned game reviews, because like they've clearly not gotten better. You see all these reviews nowadays. It's like, oh, we couldn't figure out this. I'm like, well, really? What do you mean?
Oh. You know, when we're pulling articles to put up on the news on Channel 3 to come up, you know, I'll skim through some and I'm like, I'm not sharing this, because whoever wrote this article has never played a video game before and has no idea what they're talking about. And like, I can't in good conscience let other people read this.
I think one of my favorite memes I've been seeing about like games, like especially I think I saw like part of the tutorial for Helldivers recently where it like made fun and it was having fun. It was like, I saw a bunch of comments on one going, oh, IGN's going to have a hard time with this one. I just love the meme so much.
Oh man, it's funny.
Not to name drop IGN or anything.
No, they, you know, I find it funny when IGN does movie reviews. It's Just funny concept. Nobody likes to stay in their lane anymore. All right, one more honorable mention. Crazy Taxi Simpsons DLC. Right? That's the name of this game, right?
Absolutely.
Simpsons Road Rage. By the way, Sega did sue them on the game because it's just Crazy Taxi. But it was settled before it went to court. But Sega did sue them and said, hey, this is we know this game. tell me about Simpsons Road Rage.
I've never heard about the lawsuit, but that makes absolute perfect sense.
Me neither until tonight. I played Road Rage too, but tonight I saw it. I was like, that makes sense.
Today I learned Sega didn't develop it because I thought it was just I thought they did it on purpose. I learned something today.
That would make sense. If they even just licensed it out and said, yeah, sure, throw a skin on top of it, like we'll make some money on it. Yeah,
but you're absolutely right that it was just Crazy Taxi DLC. From the mechanics of picking up customers, the animations. Now that I'm even thinking about it, like I joke, like, "Oh yeah, Simpsons Crazy Taxi," but now I really think about it. Yeah, no, they totally stole those mechanics and gameplays for that and put new character models on it. But yeah, no, I've put this on there because this was a game that my brother and I played all the time together growing up on the PlayStation 2, and it was just, it's one of those games. It's just instant action type game. You knew what you're getting into, and it was just so much fun. And eventually my brother stopped playing with me because we would do like just competitions, see who could get the most money. And with Homer on the first map, I would literally extend the last 5 seconds for like 2.5 minutes because I had the route down. I would get the most money. I would pretty much unlock everything. Like it always like, oh, you have to finish level before the next unlock comes up. And it's like every time I stopped racing something, I hit the unlock limit immediately. So he was very frustrated with that and stopped playing with me. But it's just a good, fun game, a good arcade game. I understand why Sega sued them because it really is just a Crazy Taxi clone. But I mean, even just the humor, the one-liners of Simpsons being into there was just, it was too fun to pass up. And it led to one of the best Simpsons driving games afterwards, which was Simpsons Hit and Run. And just, I sunk way too many hours in that game, so it had to be there as an honorable mention.
So that was one of the questions here. Where did you play the multiplayer a bunch? So did you and your brother play multiplayer, or was it like, yeah?
We would play multiplayer for a bit, and then because there was one mode where it was steal the passenger or something, you just had to ram into the person. And when I started toying with him to where like I would stop right before the drop off and then reverse as I saw him because I was a dirty screen looker and reverse to where he would go in front of me and then I drop off the passenger. We started doing those single player competitions after that. And that was the final straw before he gave up on playing games with me. So
it's funny because you mentioned it's like you knew every question I was going to ask, but you mentioned Road Rage kind of, Road Rage set the examples and hey, why don't we just do Hit and Run? Hey, we've already taken the ideas of one game. Why don't we just take Grand Theft Auto and also,
let's get sued by another company.
I was like, were your parents happy to you playing that instead of Grand Theft Auto? It was a very funny and silly kind of version of it. I played it too.
I think by the time Hit and Run came out, they stopped like paying attention as much to what I was playing. But if they were, I mean, they'd just be happy because it was just Simpsons. They wouldn't look too much into it. I mean, granted, you can knock over people, but it wasn't like there was blood splatter on the ground. They'd just be tumbling forever on their back like Humpty Dumpty off the wall. But I mean, just I think because at that time too, I enjoyed it because I was, we were watching Simpsons every night as a family. We'd look out for the new episodes every Sunday. It was a cultural icon for the longest time. Still kind of is, even though it's almost done with. But I mean, just getting some references too with cosmetics you could buy for the characters, the different vehicles, the secret hidden vehicles as well too. It was just a cool open world game to explore, and I just had a blast in that too.
Well, what we do now is we're going to look into the future and take a look at a future game you're looking forward to, which isn't. So we're going to look at the next World of Warcraft expansion. Number 10 is slated here with the World Soul Saga expansion for World of Warcraft. So What are you looking forward to here? What do you want to see out of it? What do you expect to see out of it?
Well, I'll clarify. I cheated. The World Soul
what
Saga.
a shock.
The World Soul Saga, they did something different this year for BlizzCon. Instead of announcing the next expansion, they announced the next 3, which is something they've never done before. This was Chris Metzen at the BlizzCon stage talking about how they really want to take the time to set up a storyline for the next expansions and do that. So they announced this whole concept of the World Soul Saga to talk about the heart of Azeroth, the planet, and how it's alive and this history with that. So the next expansion is coming later this year. I think it's like estimated around September, October, called The War Within. And it continues the storyline from Dragonflight. And just, I put the World Soul Saga as what I'm looking forward to because just not only is it unprecedented that they say, oh yeah, here's the next 3 expansions, but just how they explained how they're not only looking at how gameplay and narrative is going to be set up for this next game, but how is it they're going to keep building on that into the future? I always assumed, as a game's being released or getting close to release for them, they were always kind of looking at that. But to hear directly from them that, hey, we're really trying to build this whole thing and snip it together so you get that experience, I'm really looking forward to it. Some of the criticisms I saw were saying like, oh, it's just you're buying one game 3 times. And it's like, I mean, I've been buying the same game 10 times. What's the difference?
So is your guild ready for you? Is this still the same crew you're going to be running with? What's your plan getting ready for this? So you don't have one that you end up missing altogether, kind of like what happened in 2020 there.
So my current crew is the best one I've been with. No offense to the crew I was running with at the start of Dragonflight. I love them. They're fantastic people. But the crew I'm running with right now, we are absolutely locked in, ready to go for War Within. We're going to get our heroic achievements for the raids that come out. We still have one more season left of Dragonflight, which they're just going to do the 3 raids that came out for this expansion. They're going to swap them out every week, a week or 2, I think, and with a new set of raid gear, which will be cool to do those raids again. But we're so excited. They're adding new, talents that kind of give your class an actual unique feel again, which is amazing. Warriors, for example, are going to be able to jump to a ground. I think one of them is you not only throw lightning like Odin at an enemy, but you can also like stomp on the ground and lightning will come down from the skies and attack 5 to 6 different enemies. So they've got those talents unique to the classes. But the biggest thing I'm looking forward to and excited about, and I know people in my guild are too, introducing a concept called war bands, where before everything was unique to your characters, your cosmetics, your achievements, your banks, everything, they're introducing something to tie all your characters together and have shared access to those things. So I can have a war band of 5 of my best characters and they share everything together, and it'll be a lot easier for those of us that are altaholics.
Can you say that word one more time?
Altaholics.
Ray needs to hear that one.
That's a good word. I'm gonna start using that word.
Oh, I am absolutely at Altaholics Anonymous every week. I think on my server that I play with this guild, I have, I think, 20 characters, and I've got 2 other servers that are at least at 10 to 15. So most of them are just there for cosmetics because I love how some of the gear from past expansions look.
Yeah,
and that's where Ray's at. Yeah.
Language right there. That's right. The cosmetics are there. Cosmetics are there to be used. Absolutely.
Cosmetics, mounts. I mean, come on. Like even on classes that I never will play, if I can say that I have them, I'm there. I'm grinding for it. There's still one piece of shoulder armor for my warrior I've been trying for the past 5-6 years, and because it has like a 0.01% drop chance. And I run on like three or 4 characters weekly. I still have not gotten it.
I don't know how I'm going to segue into this next one better than that possibly. What we do now is we take a question from the Channel 3 history books, and we pick it for you to discuss here with us. We don't give a heads up about this one. This is the one that's on the spot. What is your fatal gaming flaw?
Where do I start?
Yeah, geez. We're already how long into this? Do we have enough time? My fatal gaming flaw, I think I put into that quest because I did answer that. Putting myself out there to play with people and not feel like a burden. Like there's so many games I love that are multiplayer based that I struggle with reaching out to people to see if they want to play with. This guild in particular that I'm with now, after the second raid tier, my guild took a break. There was some personal stuff, plus Diablo 4 came out, so everybody kind of went their separate ways. I talked with the guild leader eventually, like, hey, are you okay if I leave to try something else? She's like, oh, absolutely, go for it. Still good friends with her. But this new guild, like, I got the invite to it, and it took me a good month and a half before I started talking in the Discord. And as soon as I did, it was like I was there for 6 years. I was very personable. There's one guy that we share the same brain cell, fighting for control. So, but the fact that it took me a month and a half to realize, oh, I'm compatible with these people. Oh, they want to play games with me. Even though they were asking like, hey, when do you want to come play with us? That's my fatal flaw is I struggle with wanting to reach out and actually reaching out to the people to play games with that I really want to. Helldivers is a current example. I want to play that game. I know people that would play that game with me, but I'm too nervous to reach out and say, let's play.
You just hit Ender Phoenix up on channel 3. I guarantee you he will make arrangements for it. I assure you.
I will have to keep that in mind.
And the last question we ask everybody, what's your favorite feature on channel 3?
Oh, where do I start there? I think I've been thinking about this question all week, and I've come down to being able to hop between different chats based off of whether it's, the general chat, the target chat, or just game or whatever the interest is. I don't chat a lot in there, but just seeing people talk, being a part of the conversation, even just from a lurker standpoint, is so cool because I've read so many people's messages that make me realize, oh, there's a lot of people I relate to, not only in the stuff that they're seeing in a game, but why they enjoy it. Why are they taking part of it? And while not direct connections I'm making, it's just an amazing feeling, just feeling that sense of community and that there's always those chats to be had any point during the day. And I absolutely love that.
And that's perfect. And that's the way we're going to end. We've made it to the end of another What Are Your Three podcasts. Thank you, welgo, for being with us. You can find the podcast, sc3.gg/podcast, dropping every Wednesday morning at 3:33 a.m. Eastern on all the major platforms, including Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Ray. Dan puts this all together. Our theme song by the one and only Caster Garden. And for our executive producer, Joel Willis, have a good day, everybody.
Done. Made it.
Perfect.
Stuff.
Yeah, seriously, if you hit somebody else, was Daddy Mang? Somebody else was trying to get the Helldivers 2 going also.
I think that was Sam. He was on the Discord.
I just love the concept of that game spreading managed democracy. It's such a just hilarious concept and satire that it just looks amazing.
It reminded me of what do you remind me of? I've seen what's funny is one yes is Starship Troopers. It is Starship Troopers. That's the first thing. I'm getting TikToks of people putting dramatic music over like scenes of it. And it's always like they get overrun, and it's like like final stand. It was like final stand for America before it all comes down. And it's so when I saw those, I tell you they kind of hit me like, oh, is there like a story to this? And then I saw the thing. It's like, no, there's no story at all. You just go ahead, play a mission, and either you win or you lose. You can kind of set your difficulty. They're like, no, these videos are just people are doing a really good job of selling something that's not there.
And honestly, that's fine. Like I've seen some of those same videos, and it's like, I don't care. I'll take a horde mode shooter any day because looks so fun. It's like all the videos you see of Hell Let Loose of people just like, oh, how's the war going for you? And the guy dies immediately. It's so good, and I love the story of we're defending democracy by aggressively invading these planets.
Yes. And they give you a little tracker. They're like, every time you do a mission,
Yeah.
you know, how close is the entire planet from being liberated? It's like everyone does missions. Like,
They're their home planet. What do you mean liberated?
we're freeing them.
I saw one TikTok today that killed me. It was a guy going, listen, I'm happy we have so many people on this sector. We are losing in this one. Get your asses over there. Let's defend democracy.
The main comment I see on TikTok is Xbox company is waiting for the green light because the game is not there yet.
No kidding.
No kidding. Xbox company waiting for the green light sent me today.
That's not right.
I feel like that game is the epitome of the joke of gamers really turn into voice actors when they get into the right game.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like everybody joins in that game ready to go and act as if they are literally in it. And I'm all for that.
That game reminded me of, this one's more player Planet Side.
Yes. Yes.
But that's 3 teams against each other, and it's alive all the time.
Yes.
But when I saw it, I was like, oh, I remember that. I played Planet Side for a little bit. That was fun.
Absolutely. It's a great combination of Planet Side and the most recent Starship Troopers game. I mean, with the missions and the horde mode versus fighting for territory, it's fantastic. And I haven't even played it yet, and I'm saying it's a great game. I think one thing I really like, though, is how the developers, I think in an article recently, one of the developers said that a game has to earn the right to monetize. And it's incredible seeing not only them, but Pal World and Baldur's Gate 3 come out with amazing games day one that don't need constant patches, that don't need to have this battle pass system, that don't pay while you for
Baldur's
everything.
Gate spent forever in early access just to make sure they got it right.
Exactly. And it's really giving a middle finger to the other AAA studios going, see, you can make a great game day one if you take your time and respect the fans.
Oh, there was something else they just got awarded and they were just mouthing off at everybody else about in the last 24 hours.
It's just say, hey, if you just make a good game, you'll make money.
Exactly.
Like that's all you have to do.
Yeah, it was like sucks everybody's getting laid off. Make a good game, you won't have that problem, basically. Like, yeah.
Oh my God, no kidding. I see on LinkedIn all the time all these people that I respect and follow that are in the industry and just like how they getting laid off. I'm like, there's one guy, he's on the WoW content team. I've seen the videos he's been doing for them that have really, to me, revitalized their social reach and just their memeing, their great videos. And he got let go after 18 months. I was like, this guy, I recognize this guy more than anybody behind the scenes of what he did. He made a Guitar Hero TikTok essentially for a WoW character playing a pipe, like a pan flute. And it's like, that is amazing. That's what gets you. I remember even one he did too, where it was like making fun of those mobile games too, where like a character's walking into an inn and another one comes up and is like, whoa, friend, you can't come in here unless you have 9 billion power. And the dude just bitch slaps him across the face. It was so good. And it's like, and you're going to lay him off? Come on. It breaks my soul.
Hold tight one moment because I need to ask a question about that, but hang on 1 second.
There is either a child or a wife hidden behind his green screen at the moment.
I understand.
Oh, no, it's a phone. Anyone could be on that phone, though. I keep waiting for the day that Dan mutes and then comes back and says, the aliens are attacking. Because I assume when the aliens come down, the first stop is going to Walmart.
First.
And Dan will know about it first. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, good Lord. No, you're right on the first part. It was my kid. Fortunately, he just did it via phone instead of running down, but oh, good Lord. Hang on 1 second.
Is this the sick kid or the injured kid, or is anyone injured this time? Were they all sick this time?
My wife, she got hit with like food poisoning or something Thursday night at like Friday morning, 1 a.m. After everything else. It's been a minute. Apologies. I'm sorry about this. Give me 1 second.
Fine.
What I really want to know is when you're going to buy stock in urgent care or whichever one you go to.
They have a suite dedicated to my family at this point, actually. they've just dedicated it to us.
That's nice of them.
Okay.
It's all right. I'm still trying to mentally recover from the mission in Spider-Man that I just played. Just like I just wasn't ready for it.
You didn't you know what? Because I didn't know that one was coming either.
I wasn't ready. Yeah, I hadn't played it in a bit, but I'm like, all right, this will be the next thing I do in the Steam Deck because that's how I find time to play my PC games now, which has been wonderful. And I uploaded the game up, and I was right at the mission. Like I didn't have to travel anywhere, and I said, okay, good, let's play a mission here. This doesn't seem like it's gonna be a big thing. Seems like it's gonna be the end of a mission, and just kind of awful stuff.
Again, the acting is dynamite in it, though. That's right.
I'm not okay.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
It's understandable.
They get two special needs kids in varying degrees, but my sons, I neglected to I got them for the sake of like just having some white noise effectively, like the little Google pucks, and play music for them through the night. And I forgot to turn on the Mario movie soundtrack for my son through the night. So I had to go bang that out. Cause like I actually have to teach him how to just do that himself. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, let me break and then jump back in here.
Channel 3 is the future.